Go Language Programming, Chapter 8, Unit 7. In this unit, we will cover HTTP protocol, web foundation in Go language, popular frameworks, building a simple web server. So let's try to understand what is HTTP. So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Is a core part of the web services. So HTTP is based on the TCP protocol and usually uses port 80. Although you can basically tell to use any other available ports. So the concept behind the port is that the client and server applications, they communicate over the port number. So basically, client have to know what port that the server is ready to communicate with. Okay, so that's the idea behind the port number. And so now the other part is that HTTP is based on the TCP protocol. So what basically that means is that TCP allows the client, which is your browser, and the server to basically make a connection. And TCP, that means is a connection-oriented protocol. So before actual connection occurs between your browser, which is a client, and your server, there is a process called a three-way handshake. It must go through the three-way handshake, so that once that is successfully done, then the connection between a client and the server happens. So HTTP facilitates communication between a browser and the web server. That is after initial conversation between a three-way conversation between a client and the server. Clients always set up new connection and sends HTTP requests to the server. So that's what the clients will do. Always have a new connection. So whenever they want to talk to the server, they always have to, even though the HTTP is using a TCP protocol, it still will have to have a new connection always if it wants to talk to the server. So HTTP uses TCP, therefore TCP attacks will affect HTTP communication. Now, the TCP attacks such as your denial of service attack, or a distributed denial of service attack. So those are very common attacks that occurs with the TCP, okay, and which can actually affect the HTTP communication. So the servers are not able to connect to clients proactively or establish callback connections. So basically, clients are the only one who can connect to the server. servers cannot connect to the client. Servers cannot put the request to the client that, hey, I want to talk to you. Only the clients can put a request to the server and establish the connection. There is no callback features that the servers can do. Okay, so the connections between a client and the server can be closed by either side. So even though servers cannot connect to the client, but servers can disconnect the client whenever the server gets overloaded. Then the disconnect can occur, or for any other reasons. So basically, of course, client can also disconnect the server, but either side can close the connection. HTTP is stateless, means the server doesn't recognize any relationship between any two requests. So basically, if a client, or let's put it this way, if you start two instances of the browser, okay, on your computer, and both instances of the browser are running, and they both are connecting to the same website, the server would not know that it is really from the same client. So servers basically um, uh, doesn't doesn't recognize this, that client has already connected to the server. Okay, so basically that's what the HTTP stateless means. The server doesn't recognize any relationship between any two requests. So they are each request is totally independent of each other. So one one request doesn't know anything about the other request. Okay, web foundation in Go language. So Go language basically provides a very extensive set of APIs for the web connectivity. Okay, and because of that, um, you can write a cloud-based application using the Go language. So Go, Go language provides many powerful packages for developing cloud-based applications. So it basically have the packages are coming from the standard Go library, and they are readily available. So you don't have to go and use any other technologies or any other third-party packages, because everything is provided within the Go language. So its standard library has a great net HTTP package for developing web related apps. Okay, so this is the package, that net HTTP package that you can use for developing the web related applications. Browsers are used for connecting with web servers to offer cloud-based application. So of course we just discussed that. You use the browsers to make a request to the web server. So basically, um, um, that's how uh, the connection between web server and the client, which is a browser, occurs, and that's how the web servers can offer the cloud-based services to the clients. So web servers uses HTTP protocol to communicate with the clients, okay, which we already kind of went over. Web principles are divided into following steps. So clients uses a TCP/IP protocol to connect to the server. Okay, just like the way that I was explaining TCP/IP. In case the very first step that client and servers do is to go through the three-way handshake. Client sends the HTTP request packages to the server. Okay, so so that that is the type of a request that client will send to the server. Server returns the HTTP response packages to the client. If the requested resource include dynamic scripts, server calls the script engine first. So depending upon how the client is communicating with the server. But if it is some sort of a dynamic script, then server will call the script engine first. Client disconnects from the server and starts rendering the HTML. Okay, so that's what the client will do. So this is a simple workflow of HTTP affairs. So that's how client and server will communicate between each other. At the end, the server closes its connection after it sends data to the client, then waits for the next request. So now, the next request when the client makes, it will be another new connection, not the same connection. Okay, so that's what we went over in the early part. So every connection that the client makes is a unique to itself. Um, there are some popular frameworks that can be used with the Go language applications. Okay, so which will allow the developers, or which will allow you to create a very powerful uh, web application. So the most popular one that I know of is the Gorilla Mux. Okay, that's the most popular uh, uh, framework that is out there. And then there are, of course, less popular Martini and Negroni and many others. Uh, so basically, some of these frameworks um, have a more like overhead, unnecessarily they um, utilize the memory, and also you have to remember when you are using any of these frameworks, it will have a package, so you have to import the package, and whenever you import the package, uh, depending upon how these frameworks are written, the package might consume much more memory, and there might be unnecessary, too many APIs that you may not want to use in your cloud-based applications. So all these things should be very, um, you know, should be understood very carefully before trying to just jump in and trying to use this third-party packages for your cloud-based applications, because they can add um, much more, um, you know, or they can complicate the application itself, because as a developer you will have to um, understand uh, how to use their APIs. So what I will suggest is that before start using any, or even the Mux, the Gorilla Mux, which is very nicely written and popular, you need to know that is there is a really a need for it or not. If there is no need for it, then you shouldn't really uh, import these packages. Yeah. And the mostly Gorilla Mux, people use it for the purpose of parsing the routes. Routes are the one that you provide in the URL of your browser. We'll talk about it pretty soon. Some basic routing support. Others are trying to solve all standard problems in backend web development. So you see, there might be some unnecessary things that these third-party packages might be doing, which will really complicate your development. So Go language provides a simpler and more focused packages for web development, and therefore no need to have a Ruby on Rails or PHP. So there's nobody really should be using Ruby on or PHP nowadays, because you know uh, you need to be able to um, come to a point on understanding that it is good to have tools which are very well integrated within itself. So like a Go language, everything is there. You really don't need any outside things. So it makes um, development much more fun and easier, because after all, when you are developing something, you have to um, uh, understand the whole um, uh, uh, all the functionalities that are provided by some technology, just like a Go language. So there is quite a bit to know within even the Go, standard library. For backend development, usually there will be a need for data persistent, and Go provides a connectivity for it. So for that, you can use for there are many different databases available that you can use there is a very um, easy connectivity with the MySQL database, for example, with the Go language. So for the data persistent, you can use MySQL with Go. So now let's look at how you can use the Go language to develop a very simple web server. Okay? So you use HTTP package to set up a simple web server in Go language. You need to, if you want to see more, you need to HTTP related functions. Go and visit this site. So to build the server, you need, you need to have um, uh, some basically way to um, uh, parse the route, that you give in the URL. So new server mux um, basically returns an instance of a server mux to handle requests based on routes. So routes would be the that you give in your URL. Okay, so that basic idea is that routes are the one decide once you are at some website, those routes will decide what page that you want to go onto that particular websites. Okay, that's what basically route means. So server mux does the calling of a suitable handler function for the incoming request based on the URL routes. Okay, so so server mux is the one which will basically decides um, which pages to bring up based on the the route that you provided in your URL. You can pass an nil as the value of a handler to the listen and serve function. Now, this listen and serve function is basically a function that is waiting for the request. So it waits once you start your server that is written in of course in Go language, then listen and serve waits independently, forever. So anything after that line of code, if there is any other code after that, that's not going to be happening because everything will be blocked, because it's listen and serve will wait indefinitely for the request to come. Okay, so that's what the listen and serve. Now listen and serve, one of the parameter that listen and serve takes is either you provide the mux, the routes, or you provide the nil. Okay, and when you pass a nil, Go language will internally use the this default server mux. Okay, so that is a default server mux, which is actually a base global instance which of a server mux. Yes, so either you create your own mux and give that parameter to the listen and serve, or you just give a nil, and then if you have a nil, then it will use the default mux, okay, which is using the server mux. So you don't really have to create your own mux if you don't want to. But the reason that people create is to be able to um, uh, if they have some special routes, some special things in their routes, and then they create their own mux. So by passing nil, there is no need to create custom server mux, okay, to handle the incoming HTTP request, and because it will be used, it will use the default server mux. So let's look at this example, how all this thing is done. So in example 8-10, very first thing what we do is to import this package, which is, of course, the Go language coming from the standard Go language library, okay, and net HTTP. And what we have here is this handler, okay, which we're going to go over in a minute. But let's start with this main function. Within the main function, what we are doing is we are saying that we want to have our own mux. So we are creating a mux, okay, with this function called new server mux, okay, and which is in this HTTP package. And this will give us the way to utilize the route. And then at line number 14, so I commented out line number 13. I'm going to go over that line number 13 in a minute. But after creating this mux, we at line number 14 we are using this mux to call this handle function, okay. And in this handle function, as you can see, it is taking the two parameters. So the first parameter is a route, okay. So that means in your URL, if you say like some site name, let's say google.com, okay. So google.com will be at the root, so that will be your root. And if you have a google.com login, okay, google.com login, then that's another route, okay, because as I told you earlier, every route will have its own different page that it will bring up. So the server will provide you with a different page. So every different route that you have to have a handler for each different route. Okay, so in this case, we have a route which, in this example I'm giving it to you, would be if you just type it in the domain name, and that will be the this route. And in this route, it will match with this handler, so it will come to this function, handler function. And as you can see in this handler function, it is taking the two parameters, response writer and HTTP request, okay. So it is taking two parameters which are used within the body of this handler. Okay. Now we're going to go over in this handler in a second, but once we have this handler, then of course when you go there, it will start from the basic route. But at line number 16, what we are doing is we are calling listen and serve function from the HTTP package. Okay, so HTTP package is providing this listen and serve package, and a function which I already told you it is like an infinite loop. It will it will be there until, of course, you stop the server. So this is the main part. Now, if you would have any other code right after this line, it's not nothing will be happening. That code would not um, basically it would not run. So because of this listen and serve. Okay. And listen and serve itself is taking two parameters. One is a port number and the other one is a mux. Mux meaning the mux that we created. Okay. So the port number that you can give any port number as long as that the port number is not used by any other network based application. Okay. And this mux is this mux that is returned from this new server mux, okay, function. That is the one that we are using. Now, the whole idea is that either you create your own mux and pass it to listen and serve, or not worry about your own mux and pass the nil, right here. It basically, there is no difference in between either one of them. So if you use nil in here, like we were talking about here, by passing nil, there is no need to create your custom server mux. So this is the custom server mux that we created, okay, which is very simpler one, which is just like a one that which is provided. But if somebody wants to have some special features in the mux, then they would write the more logic. But in this case, we are just still using the same default mux. So, but if you use a nil, then as we said earlier, that when you use a nil, then it will be using this mux, default server mux, which is a global, okay, uh, server mux instance. So this is the global server mux instance. If you pass the nil here. Now, coming back to this handler, so let's go inside the body of the handler. So at line number 6, what we are doing is we are using this response writer to call this a header function, and header function, using a header function, we use a set function to basically tell what content type that we will be using. So in this case, what we are saying that we want to use a JSON application content type, So that's what we are setting it. Okay, so you can set, there are other different content types that you can set, but but in this case we are setting it to the JSON. And then here we are giving, as you can see, we are writing, okay, by using this W to the response writer, okay. We are writing this um, uh, JSON message, okay. So this message will be the one which will be written on your web page, okay. So when you run this code, this message will show up. This is just nothing but since this is a JSON string, it is a key, and this is a value right here. Now, once you compile the code, then you want to type in this HTTP colon forward slash um, uh, local host and then colon 8080. 8080 is because we are saying that we want to start this server. Server will start listening on port 8080. Okay, so that's why we call or type in into your browser this thing, and it will basically show this message that I was just pointing it out right here. Okay, so that's the way this code will uh, run. So it's totally up to you how, if you want to create your own mux, then yeah, you can do that. You can just in the simple case, you can just use it, the way that you see it right here. Or if you don't want to have this, so then you don't need to have this line, and you pass this nil to the listen and serve function, and it will be using this default server mux, which is basically a global. Okay, and that's about it for this code, and that this concludes unit 7, chapter 8.